So hello and welcome to another Scottish Sun Coffee Club. We're here at Bella Vita in Glasgow's glorious south side. I'm Bill Leckie, this is Roger Hannah, and we're building up to a big weekend for Scotland. I'm off to Zagreb tomorrow for Saturday tea times game against Croatia. Roger, you've got the latest news from Scotland's ever crumbling squad.
Well, it looks as if Lawrence Shankland's the next doubt could well be out, at least of the Croatia game.
Should I take my boots?
Listen, you could be on the bench at this stage. And Kevin Nisbet becomes the third Aberdeen player to be called in.
Excellent.
Nicky Devlin, the original squad, Jack McKenzie called in to replace Greg Taylor at the weekend. Probably justified reward for an incredible start, 13 straight wins under Jimmy Tillin. But I was just thinking this morning, if you look at the Scotland Euro squad, you're in Germany in the summer, we've now a situation where Steve Clarke's picking a squad, there's no Angus Gunn, there's still no Hickey or Patterson at right back. There's no Hendry or Cooper or McKenna. There's no Tierney or Taylor. Callum McGregor's obviously gone. There's no John McGinn this time. It looks as if Shankland's out the picture for this game as well. There's no Stuart Armstrong or Ryan Jack who were in the squad in the summer. It's very much a changing of the guard for Scotland.
That is, and not by choice. That's the thing. If a manager decides he wants to rip things up and start again, that's one thing, but he's lost players through no fault of his own. He's also going into this one having lost Austin McPhee, the set piece coach. We talked about that last week. He's lost Graham Jones, his sports analyst.
James Morrison, who was there in the summer.
So it's a tough time for Steve Clarke. We've talked about that before, but it doesn't get any easier. You keep waiting for something, some boost from him, and he's not really getting one, is he?
There was a couple of decent performances last time round against the Poles and in Portugal, not rewarded with anything. Bottom of this Nations League section without a point. It's 1 win in 14, and he desperately needs something.
Yes.
I think back to 2013 when Gordon Strachan went to Croatia against a side that was building towards a World Cup final. I think Perisic and Mandzukic, who scored in the World Cup final against France, both started that game. And Scotland went and won. Robert Snodgrass scored the goal. There was a great rear guard action.
It was a terrific night. Really
clean
terrific
sheet.
Night.
Scotland needs something like that. They need to find a snoddy from somewhere, whether it's Scott McTominay or someone else.
And unfortunately, for the last sort of run of games, we've not really seen that. I mean, I took some stick from various quarters over, including our wonderful friend Robert Grieve.
Great argument, I watched it.
Who didn't like the fact that I was saying that we can't keep saying, oh, we played quite well but we lost. That's an old Scottish trope which Steve Clarke was changing. And we've now gone back to this thing of, well, we played quite well against Poland, we had no luck. We played pretty well against Portugal, they scored in the last minute. Blah blah. This goes on and it goes on in Hungary. Well, it could have gone either way, but it didn't. And we keep losing without a real feeling of, wow, Scotland, you did not deserve that to happen. And that's what we need to change. And there's no time like now, is there?
I'll be fascinated to see what Steve Clarke does with the team because
so will we.
There was a few absentees last time, and he kind of battened down the hatches, if you like, and went with the tried and trusted for both games. Kenny McLean came into the team, Anthony Ralston stayed in the team. It was Grant Hanley at the back. I think it was Lyndon Dykes up top, wasn't it, for those two games when there was no Che Adams last time. I wonder if this is the opportunity now to see Ben Doak, to see Ryan Gauld, to see some of the players that he's brought into the squad. Is it Nicky Devlin ahead of Anthony Ralston this time? Doak, a couple of cameos off the bench, as did Gauld the last time, but I wonder if this is the time to see them. Lewis Morgan as well. Lewis Morgan went to the Euros. We still don't really know if Lewis Morgan's a Scotland player.
No. Well, let's look at those players. Ben Doak was talked up very much yesterday by John Carver, Steve's assistant, who was talking about how he's now at Middlesbrough, he's now playing every week. This is a guy who's going to be a star. This is a guy who could play through the middle for Scotland. He's suggesting that. So there's a hint. That might just be John Carver's opinion. That might not be him dropping any hints about what's going to happen. Ryan Gauld and Lewis Morgan, I think it's extremely unfair on them to keep dragging them transatlantic if we're not going to play them. I mean, I'm all for guys being good teammates, as Gordon Strachan used to talk about, being radiators rather than drainers and blah blah blah, but you can't keep dragging people across the Atlantic and then send them home having played 3 or 4 minutes. So you're right, we need to find out if the team was more confident. If you were saying, can we make a couple of changes without upsetting things, I would have Nicky Devlin in right now because he's a guy who's playing. He scored at the weekend. I think he's a terrific, dependable full-back who can play in a back four or he can play wide when there's a back three. I think he's due his chance, and of the guys we have in that position, he's the guy who is playing most football.
Yeah.
So I don't see why he wouldn't play, apart from the fact that Steve tends to go with the next cab off the rank, and that at the moment is Anthony Ralston.
Who's the next cab off the rank though at centre half? Because in the last games it was Grant Hanley and Scott McKenna. There's no McKenna, there's still no Jack Hendry or Liam Cooper or Kieran Tierney like the last squad. Is it John Souttar? Because Ryan Porteous hasn't been playing for Watford. Hanley's not been playing for Norwich.
No.
Could it be Liam Lindsay as well?
John Souttar's playing pretty well. I think he's still got a mistake in him, but I think for Rangers he's been playing pretty well. He's a very brave defender, he's a very quick defender. The last time, when he came into the team at first, when his injury troubles were out the road, he scored the goal against Denmark, and he looked tremendous. Then he came on against Holland back in March in Amsterdam and had a really poor cameo when we went from 1-0 down to 4-0 down after making changes. But this season he's been one of the successes for Rangers. I think he's a good player. Liam Lindsay's a funny one. When he came through at Partick Thistle, I thought he was going to be a superstar player. He was going to be a real good centre half.
Came through with Jack Hendry.
Yeah, he did. And then Hendry moved that direction, and Lindsay has made a really good career in this championship level down south. But suddenly at the age of 28 he's catapulted in because there's, with no offence to Liam Lindsay, because there's no one else. And that's the problem, we have no one else. So you would look at, I think Souttar plays. Who's the other one? Who do you think the other one is?
I was going to ask you about Ibrox on Sunday night. Has Souttar benefited from moving to the right centre-back position? When he was partnered Connor Goldson last season, he was on the left. And
he was having to turn in all the time.
He looked uncomfortable. So if Souttar's on the right and you're looking for someone, I wouldn't say Porteous is left-sided, but he did play on the left a lot for Hibs before he went down south. I wonder for this one, Hanley, you know what you're getting with Grant Hanley. And unfortunately against Poland it was an ill-judged challenge deep into stoppage time that cost you a point. He hasn't started a game I think for Norwich since then. I just wonder for this one if it's Souttar and Porteous.
Possibly. Grant Hanley's, I think from Steve Clarke's point of view, one of Grant Hanley's great assets was his pace. But because of the number of injuries he's had, that pace is starting to go a little bit. He's becoming a little bit rash in the challenge. There's no one rasher in the challenge sometimes than Ryan Porteous. So it's kind of picking names out of a hat, isn't it? It's because we don't have the players that we had. I would probably say you could be right with Souttar and Porteous, again going from Steve Clarke's point of view, because they're the guys he's had around most often, and they're maybe the guys who come in and play.
In front of that, it was Gilmour and McLean.
Yes.
The last time. Personally, I'd love to see Ryan Christie in that deeper role.
So would I.
He's played it for Bournemouth.
Argued this for a long time.
He's excelled under Andoni Iraola down there. He looks a completely different player in that role, in a good way.
Yeah, a very good way.
I would quite like to see Gilmour and Christie given the chance in Zagreb on Saturday night.
What you get from Ryan Christie playing in that role is he still gets forward. He's still, Billy Gilmour would say, on you go pal, you go and make that wee run forward, and he can get beyond the centre forward. I think he'd be far more effective playing there than he would playing wide, and that then lets you play Ben Doak if you wanted to give him a go, because we don't have John McGinn coming busting through from the middle of the park. So I think there's an opportunity now. There's an opportunity here for Steve Clarke in adversity to try something exciting and different.
And if you do that, Bill, you've got obviously McTominay in front. If you're saying it's Che Adams or Lyndon Dykes again, whoever plays centre forward, you've got those two other roles. You could not just have Doak, you could have Doak and Gold, or Doak and Morgan, or Doak and James Forrest.
Yes, well, there's the thing. James Forrest, came out of exile to go to the Euros, never kicked a ball, which I thought was scandalous, I've got to say. James Forrest could be a guy who starts and comes off after an hour. He could be a guy who comes on with half an hour to go, but he has to play some sort of role. I would love to see Ben Doak play. I would love to see Ryan Gauld get a chance to see what he can do, because we are short of bodies. Now, Scott McTominay started the season sensationally well in Naples. As you know, I've got family over there, and they're just raving about him. They love little Billy. They're top of the league. Scott McTominay could be as he has been so often.
Just to clarify, when you say they love little Billy, that's Gilmour, not you.
Well, listen, Obviously, they love me, right?
Okay.
But I think he's actually becoming even more popular over there, which I didn't think was possible.
Well.
But Big Scott, they look upon him as this sort of colossus who's come in from Manchester United, and he's scoring earlier goals than Brentford score these days for Napoli.
Well, Manchester United be wishing they had never sold him, because they sold him to fund a move for Manuel Ugarte, who's been dreadful.
And dreadful and injured. And listen, that's Manchester United for you. Scott McTominay would have walked across hot coals from Manchester United, and they get shot of him, so that's fine. So he's gone across there, he's becoming a hero, he's loving his life, Billy's loving life. I hope the two of them come in with that attitude that they're playing with at Napoli, which is freedom and enjoyment and winning games, because we need players in this team on Saturday night who are winning games. Now that's the thing about Nicky Devlin, that's the thing about Kevin Nisbet, even Jack McKenzie. These are all guys who are winning games. You know, James Forrest is playing in a winning team.
The one we've not mentioned is Andy Irving of West Ham United. A very unorthodox career path. Hearts, went to Germany, finished up in Austria, went on a trial at West Ham, won a deal, and is now in Julian Lopetegui's first team plans. He's played in the Premier League this season.
He's come off the bench.
And he's got that call up for Scotland. Could he be involved?
I'd have to say he's an outsider. Steve obviously sees something in him, but again, I think he's down the rank a little bit, because, you know, even if Kenny McLean doesn't start, he's always Steve's first sub to go to, isn't he? And he's been fantastic for Scotland. Kenny's one of these guys who just never ever let Scotland down. So Andy Irving's a guy who's come in, I'm not going to say to make up the numbers, but he's there to get experience, and it's a reward for how well he's done down south. It is very much patchwork for us, and it's, I'm not going to call it a free hit, but it's as close to being a game where Steve Clarke will have the public sympathy for what he's having to do as any game he's ever had. Now,
we're recording this on Wednesday morning in Bella Vita, home of this fantastic pizza, this Billy Gilmer, half Scottish, half Neapolitan pizza. As we're sitting here on Wednesday, you're about to go to Zagreb, and I might not see the game in television because a deal hasn't been struck yet.
Isn't that bizarre? My next door neighbour, Jack Madola, said, you know about these things, I've got pals coming, what channel is this game on? And I says, at the moment, nowhere. So it was ITV4 the last time for the Portugal game. They gave it the full Sam Markface thing, you know, and they're thinking they must be serious about Scotland. They've decided they're not having it this time. And it seems to be a game that, and the Portugal game on Tuesday night at Hampden, that people are saying, I'm not really that fussed about putting it in TV. Now, there'll be some people living in Scotland now saying that might be a blessing, not having to watch Scotland live, but surely, to goodness, 2 Nations League games, if you're out there and you're a TV executive, you have got to say, listen, this is well worth us putting on. You know, this is well worth us putting on.
This is Luka Modric versus Billy Gilmer.
Absolutely, and it's maybe our last time to see Luka Modric. You know, it will be our last time, I would think, to see Luka Modric in his own country playing against us. You know, he won't be, guys like that won't be around for much longer. Croatia, World Cup finalists, World Cup semi-finalists, they're a magnificent team to play against. Portugal, Ronaldo, etc. They have to be on TV. They simply have to be. I'll tell you what, there'll be publicans all over the country who'll be jumping up and down if this doesn't go on TV. And I would hope that by the time this goes out, or certainly by the time Scotland fly out, that someone will have come in with an offer.
And Ronaldo at Hampden for what will be the last time on Tuesday night. That's surely worth pushing the boat in.
Ronaldo could be back here for the World Cup 2048 playing with a Zimmer.
And you'll be covering the game.
I'll be covering. Excuse me, Ronaldo, you get 2 minutes? No, on you go, son.
You touched, when we discussed John Struthers, you touched on the fact you were at Ibrox on Sunday night. It was a sort of night of redemption for Vaclav Cerny, and it should have been the same for Ianis Hagi.
Do you know, when the teams were read out before the game, it was 8 o'clock Sunday night, ridiculous time to play football. Again, why that game wasn't played at Perth as soon as the fixtures go up. Anyway, leave that, we talked about that before. So, fairly low key, and then they're reading out the teams, they comes to the substitutes, number, whatever he is, 30. Ianis Hagi, wow, big roar. About 15 minutes in, the game's kind of going nowhere. Out he goes with Conor Barron to warm up. Wow, huge roar, Ianis Hagi. Second half about to start, Barron comes out of the tunnel, he's coming on. Ianis Hagi, massive roar, you think, wow. Sets up the second goal for Cerny with a brilliant pass. You're thinking, wow, Philippe Clement's sitting there going, oh, maybe I've wasted 14 months of this guy. And then in he goes with the challenge on Kimpioka. And I have to say, even with I spoke to you at the time about it for your confirmation, but even with the naked eye, it looked an awful challenge. Yeah. The kind of challenge that a forward player who doesn't know how to tackle makes. Now,
and a forward player who's not played at that level in 14 months.
That was Philippe Clement's line, was that he was rusty, he was tired, he was blah, there was no intent, there was no real ferocity in it, but it was an awful challenge. And part of you feels sorry for him that it happens, but then you think, you have to be better than that. If you're going to argue the case that this club has missed me and they need me back, and then you do the deal and you come back in and the fans are up for you, you can't do that.
Did you see a flash in it though, the ball to Cerny for Cerny's second goal? Just in that moment, he showed what Rangers have missed.
Exactly what Rangers miss is that kind of number 10, the guy who picks the lock. Even before that, 2 or 3 of his little touches were terrific, and you could see he was rusty, but you can see that, you know, if you've got that talent, you never lose it. The little ball to Cerny, and by the way, Cerny, I was pleased for him, because he seems a particularly nice guy. He seems a really lovely guy. He seems heart set on being successful. He lost a rag a bit with some fans at the Hibs game the other week. He then had the really bad, awful miss against Lyon last Thursday. But then he scores the first one on Sunday night, comes in off right, gets a little lucky break through the boy's legs, puts it in the far corner with his left foot, and in the one in the second half, Hagi finds him and he goes one way, goes back on his right foot and across the goalkeeper. And I was pleased for him that he got that, because the fans had been horrendous to him, and I saw a few, I've said to you before, I don't do a lot of social media, but when I saw that he had taken himself off, I mean, what his Instagram was 100,000 people, whatever it was, he had taken himself off because of the level of abuse. And I saw comments from some Rangers fans saying, well, that's a test of his character, can he take it, can't he take it? What about a test of your character as a fan, not slaughtering one of your own players for doing something that shows that he's only human? What about giving the guy a bit of a break? Why be personally abusive to him for missing a chance?
You look at Rangers since the Old Firm game, Lyon aside, they've won every domestic game, they haven't conceded a goal, confidence is up a bit. Having watched them on Sunday, are they now in a position to approach the games after the international break, which include Kilmarnock away, Aberdeen away, and a Hampden semi-final against Motherwell?
They are getting better. They're certainly better. Well, they're better set up defensively. I thought against St Johnstone, they still gave St Johnstone, especially in the second half, they got a little bit lazy, a little bit sloppy. Butland's had to make a really good save with his legs when Mackenzie Kirk. Now, if Mackenzie Kirk does the right thing, cuts it back, it's a tap in for any one of 3 players. Nicky Clark then scores and is an Oxter here offside. So it's still not Fortress Ibrox. They're still not a very 100% secure, but they're much better than the team who started the season.
But when the goals and the assists dry up, as they have done this season, that's when the real question marks come. Casemiro is there, looks solid enough. Dujon Sterling is there, has just signed a new 4-year contract. He's going to be there for a period of time. I just wonder, as you say, whether or not slowly Tavernier will be eased out of the team. You'll see Butland with the armband more and more. Well,
if you're taking him off, and okay, you're saying that this European game's lost, let's take him off, let's see how Casemiro does. Casemiro came on, knocked one off the line, played the ball about the park pretty well, again comes on the other night, and moves into right back, does well. So you're thinking, you know, Clemens talked about playing, he was asked after the Lyon game, would you go to a back 3 at any point? He's saying, well, we've got the players that could do it, but if he goes to a back 3, Tavernier could play very comfortably as a right wing back without the defensive responsibilities, without as many defensive responsibilities. But at right back, I think Clement is just very gently starting to make changes there. At left back, I am not very sure about Jeff.
But Yilmaz is still taken back.
He is, but he's always still taking back. That's his problem, is that they've never been able to rely on him for any length of time. That's an area I think both fullbacks they have a problem with. I think Connor Barron will be better for having made that bad mistake against Lyon. He came on and did well in the second half against St Johnstone. I think Diomande looks a decent player. If Hagi gets him after the end of the month when he comes back in, if he settles in and can do something, yeah, I think they'll start to get better.
What about Celtic? They're in Sligo tonight for a friendly game. The non-international players, I spoke to Luke McCowan yesterday about the trip to Sligo, about how he was settling into the Celtic team, and he was, I asked him what surprised him most. Was it the intensity of the training compared to the day? Was it the demands placed on him by fans and managers and teammates? He said the thing that struck him most, Bill, was the air of calm right through the club.
I thought that was really interesting.
There's a quiet calm in the dressing room, and he said it doesn't matter whether you're beating Slovan 5-1 or you're losing to Borussia 7-1. There's still that level-headedness in the dressing room, and I thought a really interesting points he was making.
It was, because he was saying that, when I was at Dundee, if you're coming up to a Dundee derby or whatever, people will be smack their heads off the wall and slapping each other and come on and all that stuff. And he's saying you don't get that, and he says it comes from Brendan Rodgers and Callum McGregor, and we all see how they behave all the time. Brendan Rodgers is really up and down. They lose 7-1. Well, we'll keep playing the way we're playing. Callum McGregor is always just this little metronome who just does his thing and keep calm and carry on. And it was a very interesting. It was a very, very interesting interview, and I think Luke McCown's going to play a very important role for Celtic this season. He's a terrific player. I think he's got a brilliant attitude. I think they can rely on him off the bench. They can rely on him as a starter, because they're going to have to make changes as the season goes on. And
you mentioned the bench. The game at Dingwall at the weekend, 2 late goals. The substitutes influenced the game when they come on, not just McCowan, Bernardo, Kyogo, others. And it shows the importance of the signings Celtic made at the end of the window, because now wherever you look on that bench, there is strength and depth. Alec Vai in instead of Greg Taylor, Austin Trusty in instead of Cameron Carter-Vickers. Wherever you look, there are options.
Well, they did the same when they were 2-1 down to Falkirk in the League Cup, and they made, I think, 4 changes and they ended up winning 5-2. Now, if you've got that strength and depth, and I think that's something that Rangers don't really have. I don't think any of the other teams in the league really have. They have numbers, but I don't think they have the quality. And if you're able to say, well, Engels will start, Hatate will start, but I can bring on Paulo Bernardo, I can bring on Luke McCowan. Now, you're not quite saying Engels and McCowan are light for light, or Hatate and McCowan, but it's a player you can say, all right, I like that, he's coming on, he'll do the business. I think Celtic are still a centre half short. There was a point on Sunday when Austin Trusty went down, got me kicking the foot or something.
Navrocki, not for you? No. Pulls apart.
Neither of the ones that were signed, like Navrocki and Lagerbielke. Neither of them look to me like centre halves that you could put in and rely on. So Trusty's come in. I think he's doing okay. I'm not quite sure he's a Champions League player yet, but he looks as if at domestic football he's a kind of Cameron Carter-Vickers light kind of idea, and he does quite well. Liam Scales has improved beyond all expectations, I would think. He's doing really well. As you say, Bailly can now replace Taylor, and it's almost kind of like for like. They'll have Anthony Ralston if there's no Alistair Johnson at any point. That midfield though is really strong, really, really strong. What I did think was that when they start with Adamida up front, I think they lose something. They lose a bit of movement and a bit of guile.
Kyogo stretches the whole game. Absolutely. Opens up more space for the talented midfield behind him to operate in.
Even when I think this season Kyogo's missed far more chances than he should. But even at that, he's in the position to miss the chances. Quite often he's in behind for one-on-ones. He doesn't always take them. But the fact that he's doing it means defenders are always here. Whereas I think Ross County and Sunderland will look at Adamida and think, oh, it's okay, he's in front of us. It's fine.
And the goals have been spread. I mean, Maeda's got 6 already. Kuhn scoring goals, get the winner in Dingwall. Callum McGregor is chipping in with more goals than probably he's ever done before.
I'm talking about the improvement in Liam Scales. What about the improvement in Nicholas Kuhn? I mean, last season he looked like a competition winner. And he's obviously gone away and had whether it's just been the fact that he's now settled into a new country, it's the fact that he's adapted the language, whatever, maybe, I don't know. But he's come back with a new attitude. He's come back with a switched on mind, where he's playing in this little triangle now with Johnson, Kuhn and Engels, and they're mesmerising teams down there, and any one of the 3 of them can then go to the byline, any one of the 3 can cut inside, and he's been, that goal he scored on Sunday, he's been threatening to do for weeks.
We can't talk about the big teams without mentioning Aberdeen, we
They are a big
touched on
team.
it with Devlin, McKenzie, Nisbet in the Scotland squad. It's 13 games, it's 13 wins. They are now 19 points clear of Hearts, who you would have thought would have been their main rival for third place. They're coming to Celtic
not
Park.
St Mirren.
Listen, I saw St Mirren
I know
Saturday.
you did. Let's not go there.
Not St Mirren.
Let's not go there.
They come to Celtic Park a week on
Yeah,
Saturday.
what a game.
Two teams defending 100% league records. It's going to be the best Celtic Aberdeen game since, well, probably since the Scottish Cup semi-final in April.
And probably possibly a lot closer. You don't know. That's the thing we don't. The one thing we don't know about Aberdeen yet. I think they've done magnificently, won 13 games in it, and I'm not having this stuff about they haven't played MD yet.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen them against Celtic or Rangers. We've seen them against Hearts now. They were pegged back a couple of times. They went behind. They came back. They've won the game. That's fantastic. 20,000 people at Pittodrie, big Sunday. That's what Aberdeen should be.
Yeah.
You know. I think they're, having seen them now in the flesh as well as on the box, I think they look a really good, solid team. There's a lot of pace. They can break. So, for instance, if Celtic are pushing on them at Parkhead and they take the ball off Celtic, the pace that they can get away with is quite impressive. And Kevin Nisbet, they have a real natural goal scorer. He scored a goal at Dundee the other week when I was up, and it was just beautiful. It was fast break down the right hand side, ball rolled back into his path. He's in the D, and he's almost giving the goalkeepers the eyes and
puts
just
it all away from a crack in
it. It was just beautiful, and I think he's now finding a bit of love and a wee arm around his shoulder.
They've signed well. You know, you talk about Keskin in the pace
Keskin's
that he
tremendous in the
brings.
break.
Nisbet's a signing.
Malloy
at the back.
Malloy's
Nielsen in the middle of the park. Mitov in goal. Even some of the backups. Palaversa came off the bench.
Scored the winner
against Hearts at the weekend. So, I mean, we're not saying for a minute they've got the depth of a Rangers or a Celtic, but they've got a decent depth. They've got guys they can turn to. And this is at a time when Miofsky's gone and Pap Guy's out for 4 months.
And what's also happened is that Jimmy Taylor's come in and said clean slate. So you see guys like Jamie McGrath coming back to the kind of form that he can show. Boys like Shayden Morris, who was hammered by the Aberdeen fans, now that he's got his hamstring problems out the way, he's still a bench player, but he's coming on and doing things for them.
Bessian as well.
Who
was away out on loan last season.
Interesting, you're talking about the Scotland game not on TV. Very interesting that Celtic Aberdeen is a 3 o'clock Saturday.
Well,
next weekend.
That is an interesting one. I mean, there's a story this morning that Premier Sport, who have this secondary contract, were keen to move the game. Celtic didn't want the game moved. They didn't want to inconvenience their fans. You spoke about being at Ibrox at 8 o'clock on a Sunday night
ridiculous.
for Premier Sports. I've no idea when Premier Sports were proposing to take the game, but Celtic...
It would have been a 5:30.
Well, Celtic decided to forgo the money they were due.
And quite rightly.
Ready to pull out of the contract, which they're perfectly at liberty to do. Look at Rangers pulling out the Cinch contract. Clubs are allowed to pull out of those collective bargaining agreements. And Celtic decided that for the money they were going to get, it wasn't enough to really inconvenience their supporters. The game's
all
not
the Aberdeen
moving,
supporters for that matter.
And Aberdeen fans.
You know, Aberdeen, whatever they get in that little wedge, 1,500 or whatever is down there, they've planned for a 3 o'clock kick-off. If you suddenly said to them, oh no, it's now a 7 o'clock kick-off on a Saturday night, and they're saying, oh, how am I getting back up the road? So I think it's quite refreshing. A 3 o'clock Saturday afternoon, old-fashioned game, not on the telly. It's going to be 60,000 people, whatever happens.
And these, of course, are Aberdeen fans who are going to have to come back to Glasgow to take on Celtic in the Premier Sports Cup semi-final. I think, is that 5:30 on a Saturday night, I think? 5 o'clock on a Saturday. So, you know, they're slightly inconvenienced by that, as they always are when they come for semi-finals to Glasgow. So, you know, they'll be happy with that decision as well.
I actually think it's refreshing. A 3 o'clock Saturday afternoon, top of the table clash between two teams with 100% records. I think it's got the makings of, for me, this feels a bigger game. Here we go. This feels a bigger game than Celtic Rangers was.
Yeah, possibly. Right? Look forward to it.
I very much look. I hope you send me.
Well,
Goni?
Yeah.
Goni?
Okay.
So that feels a long way away just now because of the international football. But weekend there, last minute Celtic, you know, from being behind. Last minute Aberdeen from being behind, and Kilmarnock though, story of the weekend, from 2-0 down, they did a Bournemouth Everton, from 2-0 down with 6 minutes to go.
4 minutes to go, I think.
To win 3-2.
Yeah.
Was absolutely fantastic. I mean, that's a... Dundee, Kilmarnock, these turned into one of the fixtures in the Premiership you don't want to miss. Last season it went 2-2, 2-2, 2-2, 1-1. All of them with one of the teams equalising right at the end of the game. And then you're looking at it on Saturday, Dundee 2-0 up, down to 10 men, thinking backs to the wall, can they look after themselves here? For Kilmarnock to come back after the season they've had so far, it's not been a pretty season for them. That must do them, Roger, the absolute world of good.
Well, it will. And listen, Kilmarnock fans are certainly getting their money's worth, because a couple of weeks prior to that, it was 2-2 at your place against St Mirren, when they were down to 10 men and played well. I saw them 3-3 against Dundee United when they lost an equaliser in the 99th minute. And then from 2-0 down to 3-2, just... It will give them such a boost, because you don't want to get... This is the second international break, and when you come out of it, I think, you know, it's going to be something like the 19th. In fact, Killie don't play until the 20th of October, because they're at home to Rangers. Could you reach the 20th of October without a win in the league? That's a problem.
You know, and it's one of the things about the way the season's structured now, Roger, is because you've got League Cup games, you've got European games, you've got Nations League games. There's a kind of stop-start element to the Premiership. No one seems to... So it's great if you're Aberdeen or Celtic and you're winning. It doesn't matter. You'll take a fortnight off, recharge the batteries, and you'll win again. But if you're not winning, if your Hearts at the bottom of the league, if you're Killie, who's been down there, if you're St Johnstone, and you're saying, I'm desperate to play and I want to change this. So you're right, to get into the international break with a win, not just a win, but a win. I don't think there's anything in football quite like a win that you get from nothing like that in the last minute. On the other hand, for Dundee, and I go back to the loss of Luke McCowan, which was mentioned on here before, they've just fallen off ever so gradually. They're still good going forward, but they seem a lot easier to play through the middle of. Aberdeen did it to them twice when I saw them at Dens the other week. They just took the ball off them, beat them for pace, and then Dundee came back and battered them, but didn't have quite enough to get there. And I think there's an issue there for Tony Docherty, but he is very much the guy to fix it, because he's such a clever coach.
Well, listen, thank you very much for watching. I am absolutely dying to get into these Bella Vita cakes. Remember, tomorrow you can watch the latest instalment of Derek McGregor's 1-to-1 with SPFL managers. He meets Livingston's David Martindale, and then on Friday we have our own Go Ballistic looking ahead to Croatia against Scotland. You've got all the weekend betting tips from SunSport's bookie basher Jim Delahunt. We'll be back here next Wednesday for another coffee club. We'll look back on Croatia, Scotland and Portugal, Scotland by then, and ahead to a weekend that, as we say, is headed up by Celtic, Aberdeen and Kilmarnock Rangers. You can like and subscribe to all of this on the Scottish SunSport YouTube channel. I'm away for more coffee
and cake.